Good evening and welcome to the October 2nd, 2013 Falmouth Conservation Commission hearing. Tonight we have on the agenda to vote minutes of July 31st, 2013.
Mr. Chairperson, I've read the minutes and find them substantially correct. There are minor corrections that I've given to Susan.
Okay. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to accept the July 31st minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. We also have September 25th, 2013 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I also read those minutes and find them substantially correct with minor corrections which I've given to Susan. I make a motion to accept them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Mario. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next on the agenda, request for continuance under a determination of applicability. The first is Westminster Land Company, Inc., 23 Zell Street, East Falmouth. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a one-week continuance until October 9th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to continue this to 10/9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Nancy and Edward Shute, trustees, 58 off of Sam Turner Road, AK Williams Hollow Way, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise the existing dwelling, construct a 3-bedroom, single-family house with a deck, porch, and with stairs, porches, screened second-floor deck with stairs to pump, fill and abandon the existing, I'm reading this like poo, the existing cesspools, and install a new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, dry wells, native mitigation planting in the existing leaf dump and driveway, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 16th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to the October 16th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? And unanimous? So moved. Next, we have request for determination of applicability, 129 Ostrom Road, Wacoit, Mass., for permission to repave the existing driveway and install a gravel drainage strip and regrade and plant the drainage basin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 16th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to October 16th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Right now, we're going to be moving on to the notices of intent. And my little speech here is all hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously. Yes,
Did you miss the Westminster Land Company, or did I get?
that was continued.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was continued to
My fault.
October 9th. Just backing up again, all hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority.
That's it.
All right, the first tonight is Diana Durkan Cuddy, 350 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, Mass., for permission to construct an addition, relocate the existing septic tank, remove a tree, install dry wells, utilities, tree and shrub mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. I apologize for my reading tonight. Thank you, Tom. Jen, do you have any?
No, I'll hold any of my comments till after Tom's presentation.
All right, thank you for the record. My name is Tom Bunker with DSS Design. Surveyed the property, prepared this plan for Diana Cuddy. It's in the DCPC. It's up sort of the upland edge of the DCPC, but where they propose to do the work is not within any A or B buffer zone to a vegetated wetland type of thing. It's in the flood zone in the DCPC. I talked with Jen this afternoon. We discussed the mitigation calculations, which I have on there. Basically, in the DCPC, we're like 6,000 square feet of disturbed area. I did the calculation using Diana's exclusive use area. This is a condominium project, which I'm not sure when it was created into a condominium, but I've outlined her exclusive use area here, which is up against Route 28A. There's a dashed line showing that area. And what I've drawn in the back here, the shaded green and beyond, is the common area. And Jen said that she felt that it makes sense to include the common area as part of the disturbed area in the calculations for revegetating, since she does have sort of an undivided 1/3 interest in that. So we arrived at the area here, common driveways, existing common driveways are not to be counted as part of the disturbed area. So this is the common driveway up to here. It's on the common area. What I have in green there is the remainder of what would be considered a disturbed common area, 7,400 square feet. I calculated up into here. Her share of that 1/3, the 2,400 and something, almost 2,500 square feet. DCP calculations are to take 10% of that and replant it, so we're talking about 246, or round off to 250 square feet. We already had on here the calculation for 117 square feet in there. And obviously the best place to put in more mitigation lighting is in the common area. I feel that she'll have to talk to the other condominium owners, though, to plant here. So we'll be requesting a continuance. I don't know how quickly she can get this answer, but at the very least, we plan on another 250 square feet up on her exclusive use area at some point, but preferably to her and to you, it would be down here, but we'll have to check that with the other owners and see if that would be appropriate. My time constraint, and maybe I can work something out with Jen, my time constraint is I have a Board of Appeals hearing next week. I feel that I'll need more time than that, though, to get the answer and get a plan back to you. We talked about a 1-week continuance, but I'm not sure that, at the very least, I could show 250 square feet up here.
In addition to that 117,
In addition to
yeah.
this, I could show that, and then I could do that for next week, but then if she gets an agreement, then we could, move it.
That's fine, and
back here.
we can do that administratively as well, Tom, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
In which case, then I'd just like a 1-week continuance to add more mitigation onto this plan and come in next week to, hopefully close the hearing, and so we can get a referral, good referral to the Board of Appeals. So I request a 1-week continuance to do that, as I said.
At the request of the applicant, I move that we continue this hearing for 1 week.
Second.
And just to give a few comments to the board, your DCPC regulations do allow for the plantings to be anywhere within the DCPC, but they should be protecting the interests of the DCPC, which means they should be in the common area. And like Tom said, the original calculation was based on the use, and we just thought it was only fair not to have them do the whole common, the whole lawn area in green, but to do 1/3 of that. And Tom, I talked to you about that before the hearing. It just made
Yep.
sense unless someone can come up with something better.
No, that's a.
But that's
good
fine,
decision.
Tom, I mean, you can draw them in there, and then if she gets permission to put them, I would prefer them back
Yeah.
near the wetland.
Yeah.
But we'll go from there, and we won't hold up your ZBA hearing for that at all. That's
Okay.
not a big deal.
Before I call for the vote, I just want to call the vote. Courtney, do you have any questions?
This entire three-house condominium parcel is all in the DCPC.
Yes, the whole lot is.
So then technically, they could plant it, they could plant the front yard if they had to.
Yes. I mean, it can go the plantings within the DCPC can go anywhere within the DCPC, but you want them to
No,
be
no, I
able
understand. I
to
mean,
protect the
preferences.
interests of the DCPC, so preferably from a staff, and I would think the commission's point of view, you would want them back towards that wetland in the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's in the common area of the 3 condos, so they need to come to some sort of agreement with that.
But what I'm saying is we can't, if these condominium owners say no, then he has to put, his only option is to put the plantings in, within the area.
Within
of
his
zoning.
UC Smith.
Yeah. Okay.
Michelle?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Mario?
No questions.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this. I'm gonna call for vote if there's nobody in the audience needs to. All right. All those in favor?
I'm
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous? It's moved.
We'll see you next week, Tom.
Thank you.
Next is Michael and Susan Klein,
That'll be an
15
easy one.
Pine Bank
Michelle.
Road, North Falmouth, for permission to raise the existing dwelling and construct a 4-bedroom, single-family house with covered porches, screened second-floor deck with stairs, to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, landscape wall, utilities, brick walk, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Good evening. For the record, Barbara Frappier with Warwick and Associates, representing Michael and Susan Klein. This is a property on Pine Bank Road.
If I may interrupt 1 second, Barbara. Jen, just as an...
Oh,
The floor is
I'll hold any of the comments until after Barbara's presentation.
Okay,
She
thank you.
just jumped right into it.
I know, and it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, we'll
Thank
get out
you.
here sooner. The only resource area for this property is the land subject to coastal storm flowage. As you can see from this photo, or if you went to the site, this is the Royal McGansett behind it. There's the house in the front. The clients have recently purchased the property and they want to do renovations. Unfortunately, because it is in the flood zone, it is a low elevation, that they have to bring the entire property up to flood zone standards and building code standards for construction in flood zone. So it will be raised, and this is from the street, just gives you a sense of what it will look like from the street. And you're going to have your full garage floor at lower level. The work will be taking place during the winter at about the same time as the Royal McGansett work. So this is River Way, which is a private road that runs alongside, Pine Bank is in the front. So there will be coordinated efforts for contractors and construction. This is one of the sheds that we're going to have to move for Royal McGansett. This shows you where it is and where it's put to that. But the septic system will be in the rear, about where this shed is now, ultimately. And again, because of high groundwater, it will have to be a mounted system, and it will be contained with a retaining wall around the system. And the existing septic will be pumped clean and abandoned. And that's about it for this project.
Thank you. Jen?
I'm going to let Tom comment on the site management that's going to need to take place in this entire area down there.
Oh, yes.
How many houses are going up? 1, 2,
Cascadians,
3,
Kleins, Crowleys, and Royal
Crowleys.
McGansett.
And Royal McGansett.
Mhm.
That is going to be one major construction site down there, taking in
Yes,
solid
it
cash.
is.
So the contractors are going to need to work together down there
That's right, they
for the
are.
limited space that they have.
I've told them that they may have, I told the one contractor that's been hired thus far, that if it gets it's going to get crowded, they may even need to have the individual workers park the McGansett beach parking lot with their pickup trucks and shuttle them down to the work site, because there's not enough room to park.
It's not that far, I mean, again, it's
They
right
can walk
there,
it.
and they, yeah.
So that's one of the things we're coming up with as a suggestion.
Yeah.
And
Other
I've
than
already-
that, Barbara, I have no other questions
And I've
on it.
already spoken to a paving company and a road company, and we're already talking with them about what the cost would be to put a road back if it gets damaged, because it will get damaged.
All that construction?
Yes, and what's the liability and the responsibility of each of these properties towards restoring that road? So that's sort of in the works.
Okay.
All right. Mario?
I think it's a beneficial project. We're getting a cesspool out of groundwater, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
And you're putting in a Title V system, so
yes, that meets Title V,
Yeah.
separation of groundwater.
it's a mounted system.
It's mounted
Yeah. But it'll get the bottom of the leaching pit, what,
5 feet.
That's a winner.
It's a winner.
Mike?
The southern end of that leaching field and the wall, how close are they to that wall that's going to be rebuilt?
They are going to be, actually, this wall, the system itself will be 10 feet off,
Okay,
but actually if you look on the plan, you see there's a little grade behind this concrete wall, a little bit of contours there.
yeah,
Those contours are going to be pulled back, because that Toa slope is going to be moved back off that lot by
oh,
that
that's what I
much.
was, in the field, it looked like,
It looks like it's right up against it,
Yeah.
but that Toa slope is going to be pushed back,
no,
so that it's totally off, totally on the Royals property.
that's fine. So there's coordination between the two projects? then?
Yes.
That's fine, that's good. Nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm assuming the wall would have to go in before the septic went in, or
The
vice
wall has to
versa?
go in before the
Well,
So,
septic,
yeah,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
wall has to go in before the septic goes in.
because
Yeah.
once the septic's in, you can't get there to do the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah, because they're doing the easement through these properties, okay.
yeah.
Michelle?
No questions?
No questions.
Well, it's not really a question, it's a comment.
Yes.
The site management thing, it's kind of
Want a
my...
job?
It's kind of my job.
I know.
And the transporting of employees from parking lot to the house, coordinate, make sure that that parking lot at McGansett is available for your use.
But they're going to have to check on that.
Yeah.
These are just sort of,
Yeah, no, and this
Yeah.
is what happens, you have to formulate and you have to go with the flow. I can truly appreciate this, when you've got several different contractors going and vendors and everything like that. It's gonna be a challenge at best. And as long as there's communication with the neighborhood, I think that's gonna be key. And then you've already established that several different ways by getting the letters that we needed and all that. So I know it's there, and I just hope any contractors that are going to be hired and are watching this realize, it's not that far till spring,
I know.
and it's gonna be real crunch time, and then it's something that can be done as long as due diligence is shown. And I have no problem with this project. I think it's a good upgrade.
I will say that part of me was trying to convince myself that it's better to do them all in one fell swoop and really trash the road
Well,
than to trash the road 3 years in a row, so.
there is something to that, yes. Is there any comments from the audience?
Yeah,
Could you come up and address yourself, please?
I was here last week.
Could we have your name for the record,
The
please?
name is Bill Carter. I'm at 21 Pine Bank Road. Two of the houses that are being built, one's in front of my house right now, one's on the side. One on the side is where my wife grew up. And then, of course, the back of me is the nursing home project. So I'm surrounded by three of these projects. And when I came here last week, what I think I heard from Mr. Bird was what you were just mentioning, the coordination, and maybe even a weekly summary of how it's going, et cetera. I don't know if that's realistic, whether I should expect something like that. What I'm afraid is what you just said. Before you know it, it's going to be the spring. You don't know what the weather's going to be like in the winter. I mean, I'm not really worried about the road, so we can take care of the road. I'm worried about my property, and I'm all three sides, which is, I can't see this, but,
You can rip up the picture.
well, this is, I'm over here. So the new house goes in here, his house, and here's where the wall is going to go in. So, but I don't know if it's reasonable to expect some sort of a summary every month, every 2 weeks, just to see how it's coming along and is it on time, et cetera. Is that for me to seek out from Barbara, or is that?
I think do not rely on us to be able to do that. I
Yeah.
would say that because you're going to be so intimate with this, that if Barbara opens a door and makes an introduction, that a direct contact, a liaison from whatever contractor
Okay.
is the most immediate way. If you do not get a response from a contractor, and I'm saying this on camera, because if you don't get a response from a contractor on a conservation issue, something is not right as they have proposed,
Got it.
you call us.
Okay.
You call staff, and we get to respond that way. But I don't want to say that happens on this, but I think that because you are at ground zero, that extending an olive branch to you would be in everybody's best interest.
Yeah.
Oh, and once a month is not too much to have an update. Hey, what do you guys got going?
Sounds very reasonable.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, these projects have been coming into us sort of piecemeal, and I think now we're becoming quite aware of the potential issues of this much activity in that small an area by independent people working on their own, with, you know, accountable, yes, they're accountable to conservation, but they're more accountable to their landowners and so forth. We're looking at a potential issue. I'm not sure what the answer is. So I'm thinking a little bit out loud, and I wonder if perhaps the commission or through its administrator should convene a meeting of all the people that are doing projects on this road, make them aware of our concerns, and perhaps set up a mechanism whereby there's some oversight on this. I'm not sure we want to burden conservation with weekly reports, but I think that the different contractors that are, and the different owners that are involved in this thing, you've got to be aware that given the scope of the activity there, all of which is without any common, I mean, if it was one contractor doing all the jobs at once, it would be easy to establish a methodology. But that's not what the case is, and that's where, at least, and I'm hearing it from Tom, I'm hearing it from Jen, and I have the same concern that it's just got to be a lot of people acting on their own, and therefore no one is responsible.
Well, I think that one of the things, because I was trying to figure out how are we going to get, because I have 3 of the projects, and Jack Landers-Colley has the
Jack
other
has one.
And how are we going to get all of these people that are competitors or whatever, not necessarily on best of terms? I think it's important that each of the property owners understands that they are the buck stops with them. And if their contractor, their representatives screw up, it's on their dime. So that way I can utilize, hopefully, each of the property owners to, you know, keep their contractors somewhat under their thumb, saying, you know, if you get me in trouble with conservation, with the building department, with the neighbors, you know, there's some
Consequences.
there's some consequences to that.
Yeah. It's gonna be,
And I have had conversations with all of the parties so far, but we still don't have a contractor for the Royal or for the Kleins.
But given what we're seeing
Crowley's
in
got a
a
contractor?
city to be unnamed,
Holiday.
somewhat to the south of us, maybe 700 miles, that are faced with a problem, it's a lot of this.
Yes,
Everybody else is to blame except us.
that's the problem.
And that's what I'm concerned about. When problems arise, oh, that wasn't me, it was him.
well, that's, if I may, that's why each one of these is having a pre-construction meeting. And there is a common denominator with the engineer. One of the people that lives directly there is here. So this is a jumping off point. The what-ifs, I don't really care because it may go real smooth and things there's no hiccups. I wouldn't think that. I'd prepare myself for at least 1 or 2 hiccups, but inevitably. But I think that we've gotten ahead of it and put that out there first, that we do have concerns. The engineer is aware of it. One of the homeowners is right here with it. So I think we've got our bases covered.
I have asked the one contractor that's there to take photographs, because what I don't want to see is to have contractor 1, 2, or 3 do all the damage, and the last man out is the one that gets in trouble.
On the sites that I'm on, and speaking from personal experience, daily we take photos.
That's
Daily.
what he's
Digital,
doing,
it's
taking
daily.
photos daily.
And it's just something that documents, we email stuff, we make a line of information.
Is there a way to have a pre-construction meeting with everybody? Or like a kickoff meeting or something?
I'm thinking that, I'm
Maybe
thinking
have
to
it-
send a letter to all
Hopefully
the
the
property
timelines, that's one of
owners.
the things, is the timelines and the permitting and all this and
They're all
and how.
different.
Even
how
if
things
one
get done.
project isn't starting quite yet, if there's a contractor chosen,
Right.
they could come to.
As soon as we have
a kickoff
contractors,
meeting.
because Crowley's is already underway.
Yeah,
So, and I don't know, not till November or December, do I think Klein's will get going. And maybe not till January for the Royal. So, but I definitely have a meeting. And I think if there was a letter from the board, sort of a generic single letter that could be appended to the order of conditions or something to that effect, so that it wouldn't be just me wagging my finger at them, that there was some regulatory body that said, we're watching you as well.
Yeah, some
I mean,
face-to-face.
the more
time.
watchdogs, the better.
Are you comfortable with a letter like that, Jen?
yeah. I can send it to all of the property owners
Perfect.
and you and Jack. I'll CC you and Jack, and I'll
Yeah.
just outline my concerns and have their contractors get in touch with us
Thank you.
and let them know that ultimately they are the responsible party, so
Yep.
it
Thank
is
you.
prudent to send a representative and contractor, and we can have a little on-site down there.
I intend to have a meeting with the butters and everything for the Royal prior to.
Yeah.
But
All right, if there's no other discussion, do we have a motion?
Motion to close and take under advisement.
Second.
Can I move that as a
Please.
brief question?
Yep, please.
In projects like this where you have 3 different entities doing it, and I'm not worried about the Crowley house because that's far enough away from me, except for the traffic coming down the street. But who normally would coordinate something like this? Do the homeowners?
Well, the homeowners will usually have a general contractor, and they'll have either the general contractor himself or a project manager, and he'd be the one that would run that site. If it's a large enough company where there's just a project manager, that's the guy that you want to be able to talk to and tell him, just talking to one of the carpenters on site or one of the site guys really isn't going to be real
Right,
effective unless
project
it's a
manager.
safety thing.
But if there are 3 projects, then you're dealing with 3 project managers. They're the ones to
Yes.
get information from,
Yes.
find out how.
They're going to want to coordinate with themselves if they got a whole bunch
Okay,
of.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Second thing, do the abutters or the homeowners that aren't building, okay, have any recourse? Because if this thing drags on and it gets down to May or June, I know I'm down there in the beginning of May, and I don't want to hear a lot of construction going on, and, I mean, do I have any recourse with that, or is that a different
These
department?
permits are good for 3 years, sir. They
Yeah.
can build anytime within those 3-year periods. We're not going to put a time constraint on
So
the
they
time
could
of
do
year.
it, they could do it all summer.
They could. That is
Yes.
something you would need to work out with them.
The project manager, whoever's there, whether they seasonally do it, I've had to do that when we shut down for the summer. I don't know if that's in the works with these projects,
Okay.
but that's
All
something
right,
that,
well, that answers my question.
Yeah, they're good for 3 years.
thank you. So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any
Thank you very
abstention?
much.
Thank you,
Unanimous,
Bob.
so moved.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right. Next is Nancy and Edward Shute, trustee. I think that got continued.
That's
That
been
got
continued,
continued.
right?
That got continued. Now is the Royal McGinsett Nursing Home, 209 County Road, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove the existing retaining wall, replace with a wooden retaining wall, relocate and/or reconstruct 2 outbuildings, install native plantings, shrubs, and ground cover, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. I gotta clean my glasses.
Pictures of,
Barbara put in her permission slips. She had, we were waiting for permission, written permission from the various property owners that have the easement. She wants no part of this project. And Mike, you were looking for some additional information regarding the detail on the depth of the piles. Courtney, you were looking for some additional information on the materials being used, southern yellow pine versus, where's my other notes?
Pass it on.
And Mike, I wasn't sure if you were satisfied with the presentation last week, or if you wanted that additional information, but Barbara has provided it.
It looks like the plan to address my concern.
Well, can you go through this? Barbara?
yes, good evening, again, Barbara Graff here with Warwick and Associates. We will continue tonight, for, as Jen said, permission slips from the neighbors who are providing access. And also, there were some design questions, and I have given you copies of the structural engineer's revised plans. We talked about the depth of the helical piers, and he did make a notation on his plans, it'll be a minimum depth. And as we discussed last week, they will be put in at least 10 feet and to the proper torque for each pier. The other item that Mike brought up was about the global plane. I believe that is, do I have that? You have that one,
Global
Mike?
stability.
Global stability, that is shown on there. There was also a notation relative to the retention for the CCA. He had 0.6, he's put it in at 0.1, which exceeds the standard of 0.8. That's the industry standard for this type of construction, and he's put it in at a 1.0. So we more than exceed the industry standard for this type of usage. It's in excess of the UC 4C standard for retention for treated piles. Anything higher than that would be for marine environment, and this is the highest level for terrestrial usage. And I believe that those were all the issues. Oh, the swale. We're going to look at that cribbing underneath there at the time and see if we can't make it more stable, integrate it differently, but it will be in the same location and be stabilized with that cribbing.
Okay.
Courtney?
I have no other questions.
Mike?
I'm very satisfied, excuse me, with the response that addressed my concerns.
And thank you
If
for
there-
my-
Of the 3 projects that are out there,
Yes,
in terms of things going wrong with the environment.
Yes.
This is probably it. You start the slope, you can't get access because one of the other projects sits there, it comes down. So all the concerns that were expressed of me are focused on this one.
okay.
That's my,
That's all right, I did a little educating of myself all week long.
there you go. There you go.
No, I defer to the engineers on the commission here, I'm no engineer, so. I'm going along with Mike.
Well, when the next tree comes up, you're on the hook.
That's right. I do have one, that swale. You're saying that you are definitely going to be integrating it? It is now going to definitely be part of the project?
It was never going to be removed, it was always
Right.
going to be left in place. And the only thing was, that Mike brought up was the cribbing underneath looked a little shaky.
Right.
And that it wouldn't collapse, so we're going to make sure it doesn't collapse. I am still trying to work on, just when they do the top tier, to have some sort of sheet flow into my planting areas.
Okay. And I know I'm being redundant,
Yes.
but that lower crib,
Yeah,
I just see all this effort going in all around it. But I don't have a huge comfort level of just, well, we're gonna make sure it's okay. I don't have,
when I say okay, I don't mean saying that old crib can stay there, we're going
Right.
to build around it.
and I understand that, but I don't have, like, the response that we have here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
I don't,
that's-
because the answer is I don't know.
Okay. That's the only weak link that I have. It's just a little pebble in my shoe that,
I would be more than happy if, when we decide on who the contractor will be for this, if they would come up with some particular, if there's some idea and we want to amend the order to incorporate that, or if you want me to give it to staff and she can share it with you and you can look at it and say that stinks or that's great.
I could see this being, and this is probably going to be in my shoe till I see an amendment, to be totally honest with you.
All right.
On addressing that. It's just something, it's not going to stop the project, but I just have strong concerns about it. That's going to be the weak link. All the time and effort is responding appropriately in the other areas. And I just see that one little glitch.
It's one of those things that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it's worked so well for so many years that,
Mr. Modifying.
well, I
Yeah.
think we're just making it stable.
We're going to put a special condition in, Barbara, that
Yeah.
probably addresses the board's concern with this.
Perfect.
Okay.
Which requires the contractor, when chosen, to take a look at that area
And see if something needs to
and
be
write
done.
us either a methodology and/or assessment of that and how they're going to integrate that into this
I
wall.
could include that in the landscaping plan.
Yeah. I think we
I'm
just,
fine with that.
obviously, there's enough concern on this board
Yeah.
that they need a more detailed assessment on that area, as opposed to we're just going to leave it there.
No angst here over that.
Is that going to work, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you done any test borings to know what the soils are?
I believe Gilmore Construction did that early on. He was one of the first contractors brought out there, but don't ask me. I don't know for sure.
One of my concerns is that this is a kind of glacial till,
It's a lot of fill.
then, you try to drive piles of the stuff in to get the rocks that are 20 feet in diameter, 3 feet below grade, you got issues.
Yeah.
And that's what I want, or is it all sandy up there? And just, so it'd be nice to know what those soils are.
It's all sandy all around and this
I don't see a
fill.
reason necessarily to hold up the project, but I think before we vote an order of conditions, we'd like to see what the
Barbara, get me that
soils
soil
are.
data.
If
you
it was
have
done.
If it was done, get me the soil data.
All right. If it's not
If
done,
it isn't done, I want to make sure that we know what the soils are, because, If you don't know what the soils are, this all becomes hypothetical.
I'll ask the structural engineer when he gets back.
We're back to the stability issue. I think that we could put a condition on the project that after the first piles are driven, we get feedback that it's all going okay. That's the way to handle it. Rather than, because I'm with you, if there's a boulder and you miss it, that one boring maybe not enough, and three maybe too many, so we, I don't quite want to do this.
Just for your information, that, you know, if it would help, all of the houses at the bottom are all sitting on peat and sand. So you know,
You're gonna get below the peak layer?
I don't know, 10 feet, if he's going down 8 or 10 feet, don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Getting into peak, that.
I'm at meeting tomorrow with a pile driving contractor out there, so maybe he can get that really quickly.
You do? You do? Do you have a meeting with a,
A potential contractor to drive the piles.
okay.
So what's the board's,
Tom, how about
I say
weekly
close it.
assessment or reports on this particular project? I'm not talking about on the housing projects. I'm talking about this one. If you guys have that much of a concern and you want to know what's going on down there on a weekly basis with this wall. We can talk about that next
yeah,
week.
that,
It's just something that you might
doesn't-
want,
That
like,
doesn't bother me, because it can be a 5-minute phone call. You know, we're having no problems, everything's fine.
yeah, send me an
You know,
email.
That's not a
Shoot me
big
an
deal.
email.
We can-
And Mr. Carter will be calling you. He's my eyes in the neighborhood.
Okay,
That's true.
yeah, because I don't mind if they
Benefits.
submit these types of reports by email, right from the construction trailer, that's fine with me. Okay.
All right. What's the board's pleasure?
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
We have a motion to close and take it under advisement. All those in, any further comment from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will, you'll be in the loop ad nauseam.
That's a good thing,
Okay.
because I'm not in the loop.
Next on the agenda is request to amend the existing order of conditions. Town of Falmouth Water Quality Management Committee, end of Narragansett Ave, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the existing order of conditions to allow overwintering offshore between Sagamore Street, and Fenton Street, and to modify the storm management plan to include provisions during the winter.
Mr. Chairman, can we table this?
Can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Not sure where they are.
Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
It's the one for management.
Next is Daniel Ward, Megansett Harbor, North Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the existing order of conditions within the Fiddler's Cove Marina to install a floating upweller for eastern oysters and quahogs in an area not used by marina operations, and to include the culture of sugar kelp on suspended lines on the current shellfish lease.
Quite a mouthful, huh?
It is.
Tonight it is for me, I'm telling you. This is-
Mr. Chairman, if you remember where this one is, this is right off of, right as you're coming out of the channel at Fiddler's Cove, right in Megansett. Again, Mr. Ward wants to amend the order to allow for an upweller to be secured at the Fiddler's Cove Marina to support the current operations of that grant, and also to add the sugar kelp. And just for the record, Betsy did review the sugar kelp proposal and doesn't have any concerns with it at this time. You're up, Dan.
You're up.
So essentially, this is two different amendments, really, but I'm hoping that you approve them both. And this is just
Dan, you
really-
need to get your name for the
Oh,
record.
My name is Dan Ward, for the record, and owner, Ward Aqua Farms. And so it's really, like I said, it's really two amendments, but because I think I hope they'll both be approved. They were both submitted at the same time. The first is really for the upweller, and so the upweller, in the documentation that you have, it shows where it is, and it's within the Fiddler's Cove Marina, so it's actually within essentially a slip. It's not really a slip within the marina because the way the marina was designed, there's this kind of dead space. It's about 30 feet by 30 foot square that they can't use for anything, just the way the marina was designed. It's closed off against the shore, and so they can't use it for anything else. And so I went in there with this idea to be able to use an upweller, and the manager of the marina is behind it, and I got the insurance for it and all that kind of stuff. And so what it really is essentially a dock. It's an 8 by 20 foot dock, and if you're walking by it, it just looks like an 8 by 20 foot dock. It doesn't touch the bottom at all. It's just floating in the surface just like a dock would, with no pilings or anything like that. And then what it has inside it, though, based on the picture in there, is not figure 3. Is not actually my upweller, but mine looks exactly the same way, exactly like that. So what it has is a fiberglass silo or fiberglass trough running down the middle, and a half horsepower pump which pumps water through it, and water flows up through the 8 silos that are on either side and into the middle, and then back out again. So what happens is I've got that oyster lease out in Megansett Harbor, and last year what I did is I put small seed right out there. So you purchase oyster seed based on the size. So the bigger it is, the closer to market size it is, the more that someone had to hold on to it, the more expensive it is. So the smaller it is, the cheaper it is. And so if you buy really cheap stuff and put it really inexpensive stuff because it's a smaller size, and put it out at the site immediately, because we're not in an intertidal area where most of the food would be in the top meter of the water column, they don't get enough food on the bottom, and I have really bad survival. So what the upweller does is artificially causes much more flow, and therefore much more oxygen, therefore much more food, to pass by the oysters when they're very small. And then once they get up to inch, a larger size where they can handle a less amount of food, you can move them out to the outer site, and the survival is much, much greater. So once you get above an inch, you're pretty much set. I mean, you're going to have problems with starfish and whatever else, but it's not going to die from lack of food. Whereas when they're at a smaller size, they're really fragile. So this is essentially an oyster nursery. So, do you want me to go into kelp at the same time?
Sure.
Okay,
Go.
so that's the oyster aspect of it, and that's as complicated as it gets. It doesn't touch the bottom, it doesn't touch any other pilings, it doesn't touch anything, that's it. And I had Division of Marine Fisheries come out and do a biological survey, and I don't know if you guys have heard of the Vibrio issues that happened this summer, and close downs in Duxbury and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got their hands tied with all that right now, so they're really backed up dealing with that as much as possible. So I'm still waiting on the results from that biological survey, but I was there when they came out and did it, and they didn't find any kind of shellfish, obviously no eelgrass, nothing. It's just mud. So there's nothing there at all. Okay, so then the sugar kelp, to switch gears, is completely different. That has nothing to do with Fiddler's Cove Marina or the upweller at all. That takes place on the currently permitted shellfish site, which is in outer Megansett Harbor, 2.6 acres. And what I'd like to do, which also is in the documentation you have, following the DMF permit, is the Army Corps of Engineers permit, which also has the diagram of what the actual kelp growing would look like. And so this is a scientific permit. I got the scientific permit from the Division of Marine Fisheries, which is the exact same proposal that I gave you guys and the exact same thing I gave Army Corps, which is for 5 200-foot lines to grow sugar kelp. And as much as I'd love to grow more than that or anything else, this is a scientific permit. And the reason for that is that there's no regulations in Massachusetts to be able to grow algae at all. So even if I wanted to grow, whatever, you can't do it. So the only way that I can do it is under a scientific permit, and there's quite a few people that are pushing the state to draft regulations right now so that this could be done commercially and permitted, what I would say correctly in the future instead of under a scientific permit. So right now it's under a scientific permit with an exception to allow me to sell what I produce for market analysis, and then hopefully in the next couple of years, before my scientific permit runs out, it'll be, the regulations will be written that you can grow this commercially. Because it's already grown commercially in New Hampshire and Maine, on the West Coast, Connecticut. We're just a little behind the ball here. But yeah, I mean, the diagram is pretty, I think, self-explanatory. 5 200-foot lines, they're all at 7-foot depth. So there shouldn't be any impacts to navigation. And the nice thing about sugar kelp, in particular, among other algal species, is that the growing season is from approximately October, November through May. So the time when you may possibly have any kind of impact on navigation, which is the vast majority of the time in North Falmouth, is from June to September, is out of the water, so it's not going to matter anyways. And but they're at a 7-foot depth, and that's what the depth that they are at in Maine, where they're grown commercially. And they've never had any problems. They use a lobster boat to tend their gear. Sailboats go through there. They're right outside a marina too, actually. Never had any problems. And I also ran this plan by both Greg Frazier and Chuck Martinson, and they didn't see any issues with it either.
Thank you. Jen?
No questions.
Courtney?
I would say, anybody who's going to install a thing with a acronym of FLUPSY has my vote.
All right, I'll take that.
I'm not going there.
No questions.
Mike?
No, I don't think I'm vaguely qualified to even...
Make something up then, come on.
Well, I'm up next?
Yes,
Oh,
please, Mario.
I think it's fascinating. I never knew what a flopsy was, you know,
Okay.
so now I know.
Or flips.
Now, on sugar kelp, I know the kelp market is expanding.
That's what they tell me, yeah.
That's what I've read. I don't know if that's true or not. Is sugar kelp, is sugar extracted from the kelp, or why do they call it sugar kelp?
It can be, just like a lot of different types of algae, they're used for all different types of things, you know, making toothpaste,
Yep, toothpaste,
making
right.
agar, used in some types of ice cream. I mean, it can be used in all different types of things. And the algae aquaculture industry is it's a multi-billion-dollar business elsewhere in the world, just not in the United States. And it's massive in Asia. It's absolutely massive, but it just hasn't really grown on here. So here, what we would use it for primarily is what I'm hoping to use it for is just human consumption. So you can buy it, you know, at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or something like that. You can buy either dried seaweeds, and you can buy fresh ones, frozen, that type of thing. People put them on seaweed salads and that type of thing. But a lot of what you buy now in the store comes from Asia, which, you know, obviously has questionable environmental standards and that type of thing. So what we're trying to do is be able to expand domestic production, because there's a lot of people that eat it here, but it just comes from Asia. So if we can develop domestic production for food, you know, maybe additional sources for biofuel or for agar, or maybe lower nutraceuticals, fertilizer, you know, maybe things lower down the value chain would come in the future. And not all of the plant can be used either. So say you had an 80% yield, that other 20% might be able to go to organic fertilizer or something like that. The company that I've been working with is called Ocean Approved. They're out of Portland, Maine. And they use all of their wastewater from their processing and all of the amount that can't be used for human consumption for, not because it's bad, just because it's, you know, the end of the piece or whatever. And they all give that to a organic dairy, and they use that out on their fields. So so there's many different uses for it. And an additional thing, I mean, you guys seem fairly, I don't know, you don't really have any questions. You seem fairly behind it, but it also helps clean the water, just like the shellfish program does, you know. So we have this demonstration project in Little Pond right now about removing nitrogen. And so that's at a secondary level where the nitrogen spurs on the growth of the microalgae, and then the oysters remove the microalgae as a secondary, tertiary, secondary trophic level. This is at the primary level, so it's much more efficient at being able to remove that nitrogen. So at this kind of pilot scale, it's not going to have a measurable impact. But if it takes on and, you know, and elsewhere it grows, it could have a measurable impact.
Very interesting.
And off season too, so you get in the summer with the shellfish and the winter in the algae. Yeah.
When you talk about algae growing, you kind of send bells off to the civil engineer. I mean, we're not approving something that's going to clog up highways and the waterfront in Falmouth.
I hope not. I really hope not. No, so the way this is all of my all the material will be removed by May. So all of the material that I'm putting in will be out of there in May, and it doesn't grow throughout the winter, throughout the summer. So it's not gonna grow throughout the summer anyways. This is something that only grows in the colder months. And it's found typically in deeper waters than where I'm growing it. So by growing it in the shallower area, I don't think it would, I think it will take off well while I'm culturing it in that location. But I don't have any reason to believe that it would take off and clog anything. They've been growing it in Connecticut, in Long Island Sound, which is much more polluted than Falmouth, for many years and haven't had that issue. They've been growing it in Maine for 4 years now and haven't had any problems with that. So I don't believe that would be an issue.
And who besides us is going to approve it?
Division of Marine Fisheries has approved it. Army Corps of Engineers has approved it. You guys will approve it. Board of Selectmen will approve it. The Department of Marine Environmental Services, I think that's the new name, they approved it.
Okay, I'm not on a limb by myself, I'm okay.
Oh, no.
No, Mike, we're not the only ones approving it. There are multiple levels, and as Dan said at the beginning, this particular aspect of his project is under a scientific permit through the
Yeah.
Division of Marine Fisheries, so the scale of it is much smaller. It's a small-scale demonstration project under a scientific permit.
And I give biannual reports to Division of Marine Fisheries, Army Corps of Engineers. I can give them to you guys if you'd like as well.
Oh, that'll be a condition, thank you.
There you go.
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I am going to make, do you have any butter cards?
Mm-mm.
I do.
Good project.
Yeah, I admire your ambition.
Thanks.
And I respect your response to questions. Anybody that has, off the top of his head, know all these different departments and your permitting and all the energies that you put into this, I really wish you success in this.
Thank you.
I hope that this is something that can be a benchmark for others to see that this is a viable way. I'm far more interested in this type of activity than many others that come before this board.
Sewering and whatever else.
Just other things.
Other thing, yeah. But I really hope so too, and it is unfortunate there's so many hoops to jump through, but my background is in coastal management and in zoology and aquaculture, so I know the hoops to jump through, so maybe I'm more suited to that than others. But yeah, hopefully it works out well, and then hopefully it can expand in the future, and others can learn from my mistakes and success, and hopefully not have to jump through any hoops next time. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
We have a motion and a second on the table to close and take it under advisement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Mr.
The-
Chairman, I'm not quite sure where the Water Quality Management Committee is, but their amendment was just a small modification to that existing permit where they wanted to add an additional overwintering area. That was discussed in the hearing. It'll have the same, we'll go through the same winter storm management modification to their winter storm management plan, and it's just for the board to approve a additional overwintering area elsewhere in the pond to store those.
We need to untable them.
Yeah.
Motion to untable the water quality management.
What is it, just tune me in on an overwintering area?
Courtney's
just-
going to second.
Say second.
Huh?
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
All those in favor of untabling?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
It's just an area to store the oysters while they're dormant, Courtney,
Okay, thank you.
between December and early March, so they're not removing them from the pond.
Okay, I understand now. Now I realize it. This relates to that.
Yes, it relates to the
Okay.
project out on
Fine.
Little Pond.
I just had to get my head around it.
Yep, no
Okay,
problem.
fine. Do we want to just move to approve it or close it? and
Unless
take
the
it
board
under
has
advisement?
any specific questions or concerns that they want me to relay to the Water Quality Management Committee.
This is,
It's pretty straightforward.
yeah, this is a very minor.
Okay,
Motion
thank
to
you.
close and take it under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. On to other business. This is a subject that we started last week about the fees. And I know that it will be brief because we had a very informative discussion about it last week. And there was a mention by myself on the fee rate. And during the week, there was some more information provided by staff about one more additional increase on the variance process, and that would be a $100 increase on each variance. If there's one variance, it'd be 100. If it's two variances, three variances, it's $100 per variance on that. That was the rate for those that need to be refreshed. I had offered a 300, a 550, a 550, and the 100, going up respectively $100 and $150 on the commercial.
Yeah, so that would be a 300 for the commercial, Tom,
Yes,
550 for the dredging,
yes,
and 550 for coastal projects.
correct.
Yes.
Plus the 100 on the variances.
Yes.
This is open for discussion and I want the board to have a comfort level with this. I don't know if Mike got the information.
Oh, and then 100 for the variances.
For each.
Yeah, for each
Each
variance.
variance. I don't know if Mike got the information that he had.
No, I
posted.
didn't have a chance to break out the different categories, and if you still want me to do that, Mike, I will provide you that information. You wanted to know what the different, how many in each category, dredging, commercial, and other.
Right. My thought process is so we have some idea of what impact we'd be having before we, that was my thought process, where we were.
I can honestly say the dredging part of it is fairly easy. The town did the comprehensive dredging permit for 10 years. The town is the only one that actually comes before the board for dredging. You have a few minor dredging projects in Falmouth Inner Harbor from private property owners, but other than that, the dredging part is just usually the town. And that was all done under that 10-year comprehensive dredge permit that you approved last year. So you won't probably be seeing any large-scale dredging projects anytime soon. Commercial projects in the last 3 years, I know we had a couple along Worcester Court when we were doing the stormwater, and then the FW website. You just had Royal Megansett, which would be considered commercial.
And a few marinas occasionally.
The marinas occasionally.
Steamship.
Steamship.
Yep.
Thinking of going through town. But I can get you those numbers, Mike.
I think this is much, you're the one going before the town. If you're comfortable with the recommendations.
I think the recommendations that were made were reasonable.
Recommended, then I'll go along with it because I have no reason to object.
I think they're reasonable when you look at the other towns and in relation to yours. As I said, I feel comfortable with the other fee structures that you have right now, that they're comparable to the other towns. As I said last week, I only identified the commercial, the coastal, and then I had forgotten to mention the variance request as just potential areas that you could look at. And I think the proposed increases that Tom has made are fair, reasonable, and
The variant, from my perspective, is a little odd in that if we listen to town council and how the board has, how the committee has voted in the past, I don't know who would ever be given a variance, so that why we'd be worried about, I don't want to mislead people, I guess, we've been pretty vehement in that you're never going to, unless it's a piece of public property, you're not going to meet the criteria for a variance, so we're not going to give it. So I'm a little squeamish there, but I'll go along with it.
Okay.
Mario?
I've had experience in the town of Brewster. I think Brewster's the only other town
Brewster's,
that
yep.
charges for a variance. It's been my experience that people who pay the fee for variances in Brewster expect, not that they expect 100% to be granted the variance, but I've noted that Brewster Concom is much too free granting variances. I think we just have to make sure that the applicants know that, you know, the criteria for a variance is so strict in this town, and that in no way should they think that, you know, they're not paying for a variance, they're paying for a request for a variance.
Yes, they're paying for review. If this is something that the board feels uncomfortable with and wants to take another, some more time to think about, we can always revisit that section next year.
Yeah,
And if you
actually,
just want to go with the coastal and the commercial, and it's fairly straightforward, that's fine. And Betsy and I,
As a member, I'm more comfortable with that. Are you done?
Okay.
I'm with Mary.
yep.
Well,
So why don't we just take variances off the table for now?
that can be that, if I would entertain a motion without the variances.
For the 300 commercial, to increase the commercial to 300 and the dredging and coastal to 550.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Is there any discussion from the audience before I?
Oh, there's one thing. There's another category in here. The way,
Jen, quick question. Do we charge for IDAs?
Yes.
yes.
We do?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You do.
For some reason or other, I thought we didn't. Okay.
Right now, you have commercial in with other conservation. I would keep the other conservation as the same as your notice of intent for 100, because that could be anything. So I would keep strictly a commercial project and a commercial entity is 300. And anything listed as other conservation in your current fee schedule, the same as a notice of intent for a single-family house, just to break that up.
We need to amend the motion.
And that'll be a category 6. We'll add one.
I amend my motion to include the change for other
Other conservation.
Second.
We have the amended motion and second. Any further discussion on the board? Want to call for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
And understand that these are just recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and they may or may not take your recommendation.
Are we voting separately on the variance issue or not at all?
Not at
No, we
all.
took that off the table
Took it
for
off the
right now.
table.
We'll revisit it next year.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Baby steps.
Do we have any orders
No.
to vote?
We'll do, let me just double check. Tom, Mike, Mario, and Courtney, you're all here next week, correct? You're
Yes.
here next week,
There's a good chance I won't be.
but Betsy will be. So, Courtney, Tom, Betsy, Mike.
I'll be here.
You're not on any of them. You weren't here last week, Courtney. Mike and Tommy will be here. Okay, we're fine. We can do it next week.
We all set?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved.